Hello everyone, welcome back, and today is week 9 of my Duran Duran album rankings. This week we have the marvellous Medazzaland. I'm one of the few people that does like Medazzaland. If you watched my previous video, which was thank you, I mentioned at the end that I also like Medazzaland. Yes, I do like thank you as well. Shock. Now, Medazzaland was released in 1997, however, it was only released in Japan, North America and Latin America, and this was due to the band not having a management at the time, so the worldwide release of Medazzaland got cancelled, I believe. Also, during this album, Simon hit writer's block, which was due to John's departure from the band. John had co-written 3 songs on Medazzaland, although it was technically 4, but his bass did get removed from one of the songs, which I'll get into at some point. Now, as I said, Simon hit writer's block, so some of the songs on here were not written by him. Now, obviously, as I have said in all of my ranking videos, just because a song is at the bottom or lower down in the list, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like it. It's just the song that I am least likely to listen to out of them all, or one that I don't listen to that much in comparison to the others. But anyway, let's just get on with the ranking. So at number 12 we have Silver Halo. Now, I'm going to be honest here, Silver Halo is probably the only Duran Duran song that I don't really like, and it's not that I don't like it, I just find it really creepy for some reason. I feel like it's something that you would hear in maybe like a horror film. I don't know why, you know, it's got a very suspenseful sound to it. I think it's quite a heavy song, and Simon has said that Medazzaland is a heavy album in some parts, and I do think that Silver Halo is probably the noisiest, heaviest song on the album to listen to. Now, Silver Halo was part of the B-side to Out of My Mind, and Nick claims it as one of his favourite songs from Medazzaland, noting that it is a song about never giving in. Now, I'm unsure if he wrote the lyrics, but I feel like he maybe did, considering he knows what it's about, and you know, Simon doesn't really explain his lyrics. But I'm unsure. As I said at the beginning, Simon didn't write all the lyrics to this album because he hit writer's block at that time, and he was struggling to come up with lyrics, so not all of the songs on Medazzaland are written by Simon. I think about half of them are. So I'm not sure if Nick was the one who wrote the lyrics to Silver Halo. But it is at number 12 because it does kind of creep me out a little bit. At number 11, we have the title track, Medazzaland. Now, Medazzaland is the first Duran Duran track to feature Nick on vocals. However, he does not sing, which I think anybody that has listened to Medazzaland will obviously know. The track has a rather experimental sound containing rather machine-like noises, and Nick shows his love of poetry by speaking the lyrics. I also believe he wrote the lyrics to Medazzaland as well, and if anyone knows what the name Medazzaland was inspired by, it was inspired from Simon having dental surgery, and the name of the intravenous sedative that they gave him was Midazolam, I believe, and so, you know, that kind of ended up leading to the album being called Medazzaland, and Nick wrote the song Medazzaland, the album's title track, as sort of like a little, you know, it was sort of like inspired from Simon's surgery experience, which was a bit like, ooh, I hope he was okay with that, because if I was having dental surgery, I don't think I'd want someone else to write about it, but if he was okay with it, then it's okay, you know? But John's bass features on the track Medazzaland as well. It's one of the 3 songs that he does play bass on. And at number 11, we have Medazzaland. Now, at number 10, we have Buried in the Sand. Again, this was another track written by Nick. It was Nick's farewell letter to John. because obviously John left the band before Medazzaland came out, and Nick, you know, he tried to speak to John, and John had already made up his mind. I think, you know, looking back, and like, I know I wasn't alive then or anything, but, you know, when I've watched videos from just before, like Medazzaland, you can sort of tell that John is like ready to leave. It's understandable, you know, I do understand like why he left and things like that, and I think, you know, it was probably the best thing for him to do at that time. I honestly think had he have stayed, we just never, you know, we'd have never gotten the reunion, and we might not have the band together now, if you know what I'm saying. Then Nick states that himself, Simon and Warren had a talk, and they were all just a little numb from John's decision to leave. I feel like Simon was probably more heartbroken than numb, and I mean, I don't know his feelings, I'm not trying to say I do, but you know, John leaving the band, it did take a toll on Simon, and you know, he like thinks the world of John. I think that's really clear, and it always has been, he always has. But you know, so I can imagine it, well, it gave him writer's block without John there to like inspire him. So you know, I can imagine it really did take a hit at him. I do think once you listen to Buried in the Sand a few times, it is clear that Nick did write the song, because it is more wordy than lyrical, and I don't mean that to sound rude or anything, because obviously Nick and Warren wrote a lot of the songs in Pop Trash, and there is some good songs on there, so I'm not saying like Nick was, you know, not able to be lyrical, but I just think like this song, it was supposed to be more like it was a farewell letter, and you can tell that it is more like a letter in a song. But at number 10 we have Buried in the Sand. Now we are going into the top 9 now, and I'm gonna be honest, once it got to around number 10, number 9 in the rankings, it was really difficult. I do really like Medazzaland, and I mean, I really like 90s Duran Duran, so ranking the 90s albums have been really difficult. At number 9 we have Be My Icon. Be My Icon was originally titled Butt Naked. It also featured John Taylor on vocals before he left in January of 1997. They're going to find the icon. In the song, Simon portrays an obsessed person, while Warren supposedly plays the victim through his guitar. And I only learnt that last night when I was looking for facts about that album, and I did think that was quite interesting, because I think Be My Icon is very like, it is one of the heavier songs on Medazzaland, and I mean, I do think that is rightful really, because obviously it is about like an obsessive fan, and well, we know that Duran Duran has had their deal of those, and probably still does now, but especially in the 80s, you know. And there probably were people that were like keeping their cigarette butts and going through their trash as written in the song. Now recently, since I've listened to Be My Icon a lot more, I started to realise that to me it reminds me of Read My Lips from Liberty, and I don't know if anybody else has ever like made that connection and thought, oh, this sounds like this. But I have for a while now thought that Be My Icon and Read My Lips from Liberty do sound quite similar, especially that like beginning part, like the first verse. And when I was reading about Be My Icon last night, it did actually say that Be My Icon was a very like Liberty feeling track, and so I was like, oh, I'm glad that, you know, that is picked up on, because I wasn't sure if it was just me like connecting things that weren't there. But at number 9 we have Be My Icon. At number 8 we have Electric Barbarella. Electric Barbarella is the 29th Duran Duran single, and again with this song the lyrics were written by Nick. The song, I think we can tell what the song's about, especially if we've seen the video, which was actually banned. We'll get into that in a sec. So I think we can tell what the lyrics are about. It's about a futuristic sex robot, but Nick also claimed that it is also really about loneliness. I guess, you know, he didn't say this, but I guess it is like just about, you know, wanting a companion. Electric Barbarella wasn't a single in the UK until the release of the Greatest album in 1999. And the music video was also banned everywhere, I believe, because of its depiction of the sex doll that is Barbarella. I mean, I do understand why it wasn't allowed on the TV. She is walking around butt naked, as the original title of Be My Icon was. There's at least 2 videos that they've got banned now, isn't it? I mean, they banned Girls on Film, the original night version music video, and then they banned Electric Barbarella. And I mean, Electric Barbarella was mild in comparison to the original Girls on Film video, but I digress. And fun fact, I actually named my Duran Duran lava lamp Electric Barbarella because it was just fitting. The colour of the lava inside the lamp, it reminded me of Medazzaland, and it's electric, you plug it in, so I called her Electric Barbarella. Got that like Simon and Electric Barbarella hair flick going on. This is great, it's really on theme. At number 8 we have Electric Barbarella. At number 7 we have So Long Suicide. I was quite shocked to find out what this was about, really. It did quite shock me. Simon wrote the song in reaction to Kurt Cobain's death, and Nick was quoted saying that he and the rest of the band thought Nirvana had something special musically. So Kurt's death was a shock to them all, but it affected Simon the most, according to Nick, because he related to Kurt as a lyricist and a singer. I'm gonna be honest, I am one of those people that does only know a couple of Nirvana songs. I think thoroughly I know 3, and one of them is the one that everyone knows. But I did end up listening to a few more Nirvana tracks about a week ago, and I could kind of understand what Simon meant by that with relating to him as a lyricist. Obviously I don't know from like his own personal feelings, but like listening to the lyrics, I did quite understand like what he was trying to say, like what he meant really. And so basically So Long Suicide was Simon's sort of like goodbye note to Kurt, which I think is really nice, because I don't think that Duran Duran ever knew Nirvana, like personally, and vice versa. So, you know, obviously like when something just affects you, really, you do want to write about it, at least coming from someone who actually does also write lyrics. I do find that, like, you know, sometimes things may not be personal to you, but they affect you, and all you can do is write about it and put it in a song, and I do think that was really nice. And John also played bass on this song as well. I do really like the lyrics to So Long Suicide. I especially like the end lyrics that, you know, say that after all the crash and swell, we are just human. And I think that is really true, especially like in Duran Duran's case as well. Like, people kind of really just ripped into them, especially in the 90s, and it's like, you know, they're only human, and people are only human, and, you know, at the end of the day, you gotta be nicer to people. At number 7, we have So Long Suicide. Where's the sunlight gone? I think I made it disappear by talking about that sad song. But it's about to get even sadder, because at number 6, and I think this is gonna be really hard for me to actually get through talking about. At number 6, we have Michael, You've Got a Lot to Answer For. Now, I remember the first time that I heard this song, I didn't know who it was about, and, you know, I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't actually listening to it properly, because I was sort of, like, out and about, and I just kind of had music on in the background to, like, keep me focused, and I wasn't completely listening to the lyrics or anything. So I don't really remember the first time I listened to it properly. I just remember, like, looking at the title and wondering, who is Michael and what has he got to answer for? And Well, I come to find out about a year ago that it was about Michael Hutchence from In Excess, and that Simon was very, very close to him. Oh, this is going to be so difficult, but for some reason, like, I'm not an easily upset person. For some reason, talking about this song really sets me off, and I don't know what. I think it's just like knowing how much it really like affected Simon. It's really difficult, but I'm gonna push through. Nick quotes that Simon absolutely adored Michael. That is obvious from like things I've read in the past once I discovered who this song was about. Nick also said that the two of them were like joined at the hip at one point. They were so close, and that the song was like a little love song to Michael from Simon. And I only found out last night that the version on the album was the first take that Simon did of the song. He was sat on a chair in Warren's home in Battersea where they were recording Medazzaland, and he was just singing, and they were recording and he was just singing. And I find that so beautiful and raw, and I think you can really tell the song is raw, but I think it makes it even more special when you know that it kind of wasn't like really a planned thing. He just kind of sat there and sung, and I do think it really shows Simon's love for Michael. And you know, at that point he didn't know like what was going to happen to Michael. It was kind of like, I remember seeing a post somebody made saying that like it was like Simon's goodbye to him before he ever knew he was saying goodbye. And oh, that, it killed me, and I'm not even being dramatic. After Michael's passing, Simon could no longer perform the song live either, which I think that really shows how much it affected him. Like it really did. And like, I don't want to seem like I'm just being dramatic about this, and it's like, you don't know either of them. But it's like, I know, but like, you know, in the same way that Simon didn't personally know Kurt Cobain and he wrote a song for him, it's kind of like, you know, I don't personally know either of them, but I'm just like feeling, you know, affected by it in a way, because it's just, you know, really bloody sad that he lost like one of his closest friends. And I think what makes me even more sad about it is he just wrote the final song in the trilogy of songs about his other friend that had passed away, and then, you know, this happened with Michael. It just really, I think it really is so sad. I really don't listen to it often, simply because it really does actually like upset me. You're probably going to be like, why is it at number 6? But it's at number 6 because it deserves to be higher up, simply because of just the story behind it. It's at number 6 we have Michael, You've Got a Lot to Answer For. At number 5 we have Who Do You Think You Are? Who do you think you are? Now, I couldn't really find much about this song other than the fact that it is supposedly about John's departure from the band, but I'm not sure if I believe that. Now, I'm not entirely sure who wrote the lyrics, but I feel like the lyrics may have been written by Simon. I could be wrong, but I feel like it is more of a, like, you know, from the heart, and it's really, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't find much about this song, and Nick also didn't mention this song in the classic pop special about Medazzaland, so I really have like not a lot to go on at all. But I just don't know if I believe that it is about John. You know, correct me if I am wrong and say, yeah, it is about John, but do only say that if you actually like know, and it's not just because you've googled it and found the same answer that I did. But I just do doubt that it is about John, because Simon cared and loved John, and he still does, obviously, and I just don't feel like he'd write a song like that about John, because there's another song on this album that I believe is about John, and it's completely different. And you know, when you have like a close friendship, you do have like lots of different feelings. You know, sometimes you're really mad at your friend or whatever, but I don't know, I just cannot imagine that's true. And if it is written by someone else, then it would make more sense to be about John. But something about it just sounds, it's definitely very much aimed at somebody. It's, you know, it's very much, you know, like actually like a message, like, who do you think you are? And there's just like things that's like, sometimes I think it's a game to you, and like, I've got a mind. And the lyric at the end, almost near the end, is the part where it's like, why do you feel ashamed when you can't explain the things I say to other people? And I always find that really gut-wrenching, to be honest. And I don't know, I just feel like that's something that Simon would write, and I could be wrong, but I also don't think he would have wrote that about John. Again, I could be wrong, I don't know. I feel like it is written about somebody, like to somebody, but I don't think that somebody's John. And again, I could be wrong. Don't get mad at me if I am, okay? This is just my theory. But I do think it is a great song regardless. I do really think it is a good song. It's very personal. Whoever it is about and whoever written it, it is a very personal song. But at number 5, we have Who Do You Think You Are? At number 4, we have Out of My Mind. Now, it is also the final part of the trilogy of songs written by Simon in dedication to his late friend David Miles. The other two in the trilogy being Do You Believe in Shame and Ordinary World. Originally, the song was titled Got to Get You Out of My Mind, which is what's, you know, sang in the song anyway. But, you know, I guess it obviously seemed a little bit of a mouthful and quite unnecessary to have the title be that long. So obviously it ended up being Out of My Mind. And it was also a single for the soundtrack of The Saint, a 1997 movie. As I mentioned before, Silver Halo was on the B-side to the single, and so was the unreleased track Sinner or Saint, which I listened to recently, Sinner or Saint, and it was actually really good. And I do think it would have fit really well on the album, but obviously it wasn't on there. But it is on the CD single of Out of My Mind. And I always think it's nice to just have like physical media. Like, one thing about me, I do love having a CD. I don't really play the CDs, but I just like to have them, because I always think, you know, especially if the song isn't actually on like streaming services and you can only get it on YouTube, if it gets removed from YouTube, then you're kind of like stuck because you can't hear the song anymore. So I think it's always nice to have it on a CD or some other form of like physical media, so you do kind of have like a backup. Do you know what I mean? Also, there is a music video for Out of My Mind. Fun fact, actually. So if any of you have watched the music video for Out of My Mind, you'll know there's like an old hunchback kind of guy with like twigs on his back. And that was inspired by an album cover, I think, but I can't remember what. But I remember Roger picking the album in this What's in My Bag video, and Nick was like, oh, that's what Simon like ended up becoming in the Out of My Mind video. And Roger was like, what? Because obviously he wasn't in the band at the time. But any of you who have seen the video will know about that. And I remember watching the video for the first time and noticing this like old like guy with the twigs on his back. I was like, is that Simon? I think I've just got like a detector, because I instantly knew it was him. And maybe it's kind of obvious through the makeup, but I don't know. Like, it took me a minute, and then I was like, who made him become that? Like, did he want to do it? I've seen the behind the scenes pictures as well, where he was like getting the makeup put on, and I'm just here like, he didn't look very happy, but I suppose if you were wearing layers of makeup, you might not. No offense, Simon. I just remember thinking like, well, this isn't, you know, this is, who made him do that? I hope he wanted to do that, you know? I do remember that video, and I just thought I'd include that fact about it. At number 4, we have Out of My Mind. At number 3, we have Midnight Sun. Midnight Sun comes straight after Michael, You've Got a Lot to Answer For on the album. And I just think that's like a double blow, really. Midnight Sun is quite a sad song itself. From my knowledge, it's not actually about like anybody who has passed away, but I do believe that it is a song about John, written by Simon. Now, this is not something that's confirmed, I don't think, but that's what a lot of people say that it's about. It's about John. It was like Simon's song to John, and I think if you listen to the lyrics, it does really sound like it could be about John from Simon. John's bass was originally on this song, but Warren removed it because he decided to re-record the rhythm tracks for the song, and, you know, he thought, I've got an idea. Let me just remove John's bass, which I know you're probably thinking, oh, why are you getting angry about that? I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest here. I'm not sure if this is a good idea, but I'm going to be honest. Now, considering that this song is supposedly about John, I just find the fact that his bass was removed from the song like a little bit wrong, actually, and a little bit strange, you know? I want to say, like, I don't know if it was done intentionally, but obviously it was done intentionally if you actually go into the studio, re-record the rhythm tracks, and get rid of his bass. Do you know what I mean? So something about that, and when I read about it, I was like, oh, that don't sit very well with me, to be honest. I'm not trying to cause a drama in the Duran Duran community, but for me, that just, it wasn't exactly right. And like I said, I don't know if the song is about John, but it does seem like it is about John. And I know it's not like that big of a deal. It's like, well, what is the big deal about it? Like, why does it matter? But it's like, if the song was about himself, it would have felt more right that his bass was on the song. And, you know, maybe there's a reason, but I think I heard one of the original demos for Midnight Sun before it became the Midnight Sun on the album. And if that was like the one before it got re-recorded, I remember it being really good, and I don't really think there was much change necessary, really. So I don't know if it was done out of like some spite because he was leaving. I really don't know, but you know what I'm trying to say, hopefully, about how it's just not like right. Like I said, I'm not trying to cause like a drama or anything. I'm not trying to get backlash for this, but that is how I feel. I just do think that it was quite wrong to remove John's bass from a song that is possibly and probably most likely actually about him. And I can't like put into words why, but hopefully my reasoning for that is pretty clear. But at number 3, we have Midnight Sun. Now, number 2, we have Big Bang Generation. I really like Big Bang Generation, actually. It began as a demo called Swimming with Sharks. I do kind of wonder about that demo, actually. Was the song originally about swimming with sharks? I'm gonna have to see if I can find that demo. It is a dance feel track. The source that I found quoted that this was the first Duran Duran track since the late 80s that had like a dance feel to it, but I was a bit confused by that, because I was like, really? What about Drowning Man? What about Drowning Man? That's like a dance song. Do you know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm not sure if that is correct. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that there were other dance style tracks since the late 80s. I mean, maybe it was only one, and that was Drowning Man, but you understand the point, right? I'm unsure of the meaning of the song. There wasn't actually any explanation of what the song was about, but I found a fan interpretation, and they interpreted it as sort of travelling through different universes in a sort of out-of-body experience. You know, there's like theories about it like being about like drugs and things like that, but I do think it is possibly more about like what the person said about it, like being like a sort of astral thing, because obviously it speaks about like space, you know. It's a very space-oriented song, and I like that. I do like space and things like that, like sort of like sci-fi, and it's a very sci-fi feel song. John's bass is also on this track. Well, it is the last track that it is featured on. As I said, there were 3 songs that John's bass was on in this song, and those were Medazzaland, So Long Suicide, and Big Bang Generation. I do think the sort of like out of body experience, travelling through different universes and things, I do think that makes sense, and maybe it's just because I do find that sort of thing intriguing, and like, you know, different universes and different places and planets and galaxies and things like that. I don't really know what the song is about. I don't think it's ever been explained, and if it was written by Simon, it's just left up to you to decide. But that's the fun of it, isn't it? You can make your own little story from it, and if I do that, I'll end up writing a song about the song, so maybe I will. But that's really all I could find about Big Bang Generation. I've seen videos of it live, and it seemed like such a great live song. I think that's going to be my song from Medazzaland that I would like to see live, is Big Bang Generation, because it just has that live energy as well. Like, some songs I do feel are just album songs only, and you know, they're not really songs that could be played live, hence why some of them weren't. But I do think Big Bang Generation is one of those live songs that, you know, has got the energy to be played live. And like, I really envy people who were alive in the Medazzaland and the Pop Trash era and got to see the tours then and got to hear Big Bang Generation live. But at number 2 we have Big Bang Generation. At number 1 we have my favourite song from Medazzaland, and that is Undergoing Treatment. Simon wrote the song as sort of like a joke about the band seeming irrelevant, feeling like they weren't being taken seriously, and were just like how they felt like they were easy targets of criticism at that time, which they were. Like, when you read the reviews, you know, that's kind of like what they're saying in the song, like they're studying their worst reviews and laid out in Q magazine, and it is true, you know, like, it is true. They really did have some bad stick at that time. Like, journalists were just throwing it at them, and it was absolutely like, if you read, like, I have an issue of Q magazine from about 98, and they were just bloody awful. Actually, they were completely like tearing into the band, especially Simon, and it was just, honestly, I had to like slam it down, and I was like, I'm not reading this. This is awful. This is abhorrent. Who wrote this? I'm pretty sure it told you, but I didn't want to find out. There was, you know, a lot of criticism about the band that time, and a lot of it was just so unnecessary. It was like really like anything that they could pick on the band for, they were going for it, you know. And it's like, what? Like, their appearance, the songs, they're just anything, you know. They were like saying things like, oh, they should have stayed in the 80s, they're an 80s band. Oh, well, I'm glad they didn't, because they're one of the few surviving 80s bands right now, aren't they? The lyrics really do, you know, speak for themselves, and it really is speaking about like how the band do feel, and also the things that the media and the press and everything have been like saying about them. One of the lyrics is like, resigned to the mid-price section, and I think that is just like, you know, saying like, oh, well, you know, you're not really valuable now, it's not the 80s anymore, nobody remembers you. Like, sorry, but, you know, their music did change over time, but that was their thing, and it's always been their thing, is to, you know, adapt and, you know, experiment. And I think that's one of the things I love about them as a band, is like, none of the music sounds completely the same across different albums, you know, and there's like an album for everything. And I like that the sound's never been like exactly the same. They never stayed the same, and I think that's what makes them such a great band to listen to, because it's very like eclectic almost. Now, in an interview in 2000, so like the Pop Trash era, Duran Duran were asked what their favourite Duran Duran songs were, and Simon claimed that Undergoing Treatment was one of his favourite Duran Duran songs.
Undergoing Treatment off Medazzaland.
From Medazzaland, at least, and I liked Undergoing Treatment. It had been my favourite for quite a while at this time, and when I watched that, I was really happy. I was like, oh my god, we have the same favourite song from Medazzaland. But yeah, I was really happy about that. I couldn't believe it when he actually said it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my favourite song too on Medazzaland. And you know, I think as well there's a lyric in the song as well that's like, why do we still face the music? I think that's what the lyric is. And I guess that is just about saying like, you know, why are we still making music when we're just getting like tons of criticism for it? And I'm glad that they never gave in to the criticism and, you know, the harsh things that people were saying about them at that time. And I'm really glad that no matter what the band went through, they always persisted through it. They always stuck around and they never, like, let any of the criticism drag them away and, like, you know, make them disappear. And I really do, like, appreciate them for that, and I really do admire them for that as well. At number 1, my favourite song from Medazzaland is Undergoing Treatment. But anyway, that concludes my Duran Duran Medazzaland ranking. As I said, I really do like Medazzaland. I even have the original CD from '97, and I actually remember when they released the vinyl for it for the 25th anniversary and going to HMV that day. It just so happened we were going shopping that day and HMV was there, the album was out. I was like, I'm going in there, I'm seeing if they have my vinyl. They did. They also had the re-release of the CD. I got both and I was just like so excited to listen to it. Obviously when they released the album on vinyl for the 25th anniversary, it was the first time it had ever been released on vinyl. I bet that was really exciting to a lot of collectors who, you know, have been collecting for years and, you know, never had that as part of the vinyl collection because there never was a copy of it on vinyl when it was first released in '97. But yeah, it is definitely a favourite vinyl of mine. I love the bright pink colour that it comes in, and I'm not really a fan of the colour pink, but I like what I call Medazzaland pink, which is like this neon pink. That's the only pink I do really like. And ignore my shirt. It's fuchsia. Okay? It's fuchsia. It's not pink. No, but that does look a bit hypocritical of me to say when I'm wearing like kind of pink on my shirt, but really it's more like bright pinks that I prefer. So, you know, this colour pink that I call Medazzaland pink, my favourite shade of pink. But anyway, that concludes my ranking of Medazzaland by Duran Duran. Obviously next week is going to be Pop Trash, which is another album that I'm actually looking forward to ranking because I do tend to like the more unpopular albums. I give credit where the credit is deserved. I'm really looking forward to ranking Pop Trash next week. So we still got another 7 weeks of rankings to go. If you want to stick around, that is appreciated. And until the next one, bye.